You've heard this advice a million times, right? If you want to achieve your goals, you have to write them down. It's everywhere. But have you ever stopped to wonder if it's the real deal? Is it just one of those feel-good myths that gets passed around, or is there some actual hard science to back it up? Well, today we're going to find out. We're going to dive deep and separate the facts from the folklore. Okay, so let's start with the big one, the absolute legend. You've probably heard some version of this story about a study at Yale, or maybe it was Harvard, back in the 50s. The story goes that the tiny 3% of graduates who wrote down their goals ended up earning more than the other 97% combined. I mean, what a stat, right? But is it actually true?
No, not even a little bit. It's a total myth. Seriously, researchers and reporters have spent years trying to track down this supposed study, and the conclusion? It never happened. It's a really powerful story, for sure. But that's all it is, a story. But hang on, because that is not where this ends, not by a long shot.
Because here's the beautiful, ironic twist. While that specific legend is completely false, the basic idea behind it is absolutely 100% true. Real, legitimate research, a lot of it actually inspired by that myth, has found that the simple act of writing down your goals makes you way more likely to succeed. The effect is real, even if the story that got everyone's attention wasn't.
All right, so let's get into that proven science. We're going to explore exactly how writing something down works its magic, both psychologically and even neurologically, to set you up for success. So how big of a difference are we talking about? Well, a really important study by Dr. Gail Matthews at Dominican University put a number on it, and it's a big one. She found you are a staggering 42% more likely to achieve your goals just by writing them down. Think about that. That's not a tiny improvement. That's a massive, game-changing advantage that starts with a pen and a piece of paper.
So, what's going on here? Why is it so powerful? Well, it comes down to 3 key psychological triggers. First up is clarification. A fuzzy wish like, I want to get healthier, becomes a concrete goal like, I'm going to jog for 30 minutes 3 times a week. See the difference? Then there's commitment. Writing it down makes it feel real. It's not just a thought anymore, it's a declaration. And finally, you get accountability. That written goal is a physical thing you can look back at. It's a benchmark that creates this little feedback loop in your head, keeping you honest and on track.
Okay, but it gets even cooler when we actually look inside your brain. This isn't just about how you feel about your goals. It's about your neurology. The physical act of writing literally changes how your brain processes and prioritizes what you want to achieve. And you know, this is where we see a huge difference between good old-fashioned handwriting and just typing something out. It turns out, when you write by hand, you activate these vast, complex networks in your brain. The motor control it takes to form each letter, the sensory feedback, it's a rich experience that lights up your brain. Typing, on the other hand, it's basically the same simple, repetitive finger movement over and over. It just doesn't create the same deep neural connections. There's actually a name for this. It's called the generation effect, and it's a really powerful concept. Basically, when you actively generate information yourself, like by physically writing it out, your brain encodes that information much more deeply than if you just passively read it or type it. You are literally building a stronger home for that goal inside your own head. Now, there is one key player in your brain we absolutely have to talk about. It's called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS for short. Just think for a second about all the information flooding your senses right now. Sights, sounds, everything. Your RAS is the little filter at the base of your brain that sorts through all that noise and decides what's actually important enough to get your conscious attention. You can think of it like the bouncer at the exclusive nightclub of your mind. It stands at the door and decides who gets in and who stays out. So, when you take the time to physically write down a goal, you are essentially walking up to that bouncer and saying, hey, see this? This is a VIP. You need to let this in. From that moment on, your brain starts subconsciously scanning your world for anything and everything related to that goal. Opportunities, people, resources that you would have completely ignored before. You know, this idea that writing can actually shape our reality feels so modern, doesn't it? Like a new productivity hack. But it's not. Not even close. This is an ancient belief, a ritual that goes back to the very invention of writing itself. I mean, writing didn't start out as magic. It started as accounting. The very first Sumerian scripts were basically spreadsheets for tracking grain. But it evolved really quickly. In ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs weren't just for records, they were for sacred rituals. In Taoist China, they used these mystical talismans to try and communicate with the divine. And much later, in early Christianity, spiritual diaries became this powerful tool for looking inward.
The ancient Egyptians had this concept called hekao, which basically means words of power. They believed that when you wrote or spoke certain words, you weren't just describing reality, you were tapping into the divine energy of creation itself. For them, to write something down was to command the forces of the universe. But now, contrast that with ancient Taoist talismans called fulu. These were often intentionally impossible to read. And that was the whole point. Their power didn't come from being clear. It came from being mysterious. The very fact that a normal person couldn't read it was proof that it came from the gods. How wild is that?
And that really highlights this huge fundamental shift in how we think about the written word. We've gone from believing in some external, mystical power that we hope we can tap into, to understanding that there's an internal, psychological power that we can actively build ourselves. Today, the magic isn't in the mystery, it's in the clarity.
Which brings us all the way to today, and to the whole world of manifestation. You see these practices all over social media, and they can sound pretty mystical. But when you pull back the curtain, what you find is that they are actually really clever, ritualized applications of the very science we've been talking about.
Let's break it down. Take the 3-6-9 method, where you write down an affirmation 3, 6, and 9 times a day. The claim is about aligning with universal energy, but what's really happening, you're using repetitive writing to encode that goal deep into your memory, the generation effect. Or scripting, where you write about your future as if it's already here. That's just a powerful form of visualization that primes your brain for action. And vision boards? Come on, that's just a giant 24/7 instruction manual for your personal bouncer, the RAS.
See, these rituals work because they hit this perfect intersection of belief and brain chemistry. When you visualize something vividly, your brain literally can't tell the difference between that and the real thing. It fires up the same neural pathways. When you truly believe a ritual will work, the placebo effect kicks in, flooding you with real confidence and motivation. That process can even release dopamine, the brain's reward and motivation chemical, which makes you want to get up and actually do something. And all of this creates this amazing positive feedback loop. It starts with your belief in the ritual. That belief gives you a real boost in motivation. The motivation pushes you to take consistent action. That action leads to small wins and successes, which then reinforces your original belief that the ritual is working, making you even more motivated. It's this incredible, self-perpetuating cycle of success. So when you strip it all away, whether you want to call it magic or neuroscience, the truth is the same. The incredible power we've been talking about, it's not some mystical force out there in the cosmos that we have to try and capture. It's something that is already inside of us. It is a potent, powerful, and very real capacity of our own minds. It's a direct line to our own operating system, just waiting for us to program it with intention. So, whether you call it goal setting, manifestation, or just a to-do list, the tool to start shaping your own reality is literally right there in your hand. The only real question left is, what will you write?